Going live? We are live.
Ah, right. Okay. So we had an earlier. Oh, hello. Well, my name's Ben Goldacre. I write books about science, and I'm a researcher at the University of Oxford doing work on transparency and informatics. This is Nick DeVito. He's my research assistant, and also, well, say something, Nick. Otherwise.
Yeah. Hi. I'm an American working here at the University of Oxford as a researcher for Ben, and I'm also getting my DPhil here.
Ah, true.
Yeah.
True. Okay. So now, none of you.
No one knows about it yet.
Yeah, so we have to share it. We've not done this before, and we tried to do it earlier, and it made me really cross because it didn't work properly. Let's see if
We've simplified things.
Oh, well, that looks all right, I think.
Yeah.
Looks like us. Okay, let's stick that on Twitter. Right. How do we know if anybody's actually looking?
I think it tells us viewers up there. I think you'll see viewers counts and things start to appear.
Do you think? Okay. Who knows? Ah, you think that up there is, well, it's currently a big 0. Still appears to be absolutely nobody there.
Well, I just clicked on it, so we should have one viewer. Yeah, that's me. No, 3!
Wow.
People are coming.
This is the most boring thing you will ever watch on the internet. 3, you know, I mean, I've done postgraduate seminars to smaller rooms than 3, 7. How do people talk back? That's the more interesting thing.
I think they can use chat.
Can you use chat?
Someone say something in chat. 6 people.
If you're actually watching this, can you say something in chat?
8 people.
Ah, hello, is this the doctor? Right, I see. Humor. So early on. Right. All right. Well, look, we'll give it like a few minutes and see if anybody else shows up. So for background, I'm Ben. I'm a doctor. I write books and columns, which might be why you know me. I'm also a researcher at the University of Oxford. I do work on trials transparency, better use of NHS data, that kind of stuff. And we are auditing some stuff for a little project on trials transparency. Basically, a load of people promised 12 months ago that they would change their transparency policies, and we're looking to see if they have or have not. And just as background, again, I've been meaning for about 100 million years, or something.
Roughly, give or take.
To start doing more videos and stuff, because we've churned out a lot of papers over the last couple of years. We've churned out maybe, probably have 10 or 15 published. There's another 5 or 10 in the pipeline. Some of them are really interesting, and I think it's just good discipline to generally talk about what you're doing and invite people to ramble back at you. So this is kind of a test, and we'll be doing more in the future, and what we do in the future will be more structured. Doing this live feels kind of...
It feels good, though.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get in the rhythm of this, and we'll be like slick and smooth and all of that stuff.
Maybe eventually be able to have other people involved, things like that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. So, we tried doing it with Google Hangouts.
We'll get there eventually.
Which made me extremely cross because it didn't work very well. In fact, it got to 99% until broadcasting, and then I hit refresh, which may have been an error. And then there was no way to stop it broadcasting everything that was happening in this room, which is kind of a weird, leaky experience. Right. Okay. 17 people. That's enough.
Yeah, that's a nice little.
Should we begin?
I think so.
Okay. So, a little over a year ago, the WHO started a really fantastic project around getting funders to make clearer commitments on making sure that the results of all of the trials that they fund always go on to be properly published. Now, to just step back for 1 second, there's this huge ongoing problem in medical research, which is that the results of clinical trials continue to be, in many cases, legally withheld from doctors, researchers, and patients. And that's obviously a huge problem because we cannot make truly informed choices as doctors with our patients without having access to all of the data. We can't make informed choices about which treatments work best. Now, there have been lots of different things tried on this. There's the alltrials.net campaign, which we set up a few years ago, which is kind of culture change and advocacy. There have been various regulations and codes of conduct, which have been to a greater or lesser extent ignored. Now, when thinking about policy change, you know, there are formal ways of doing it. You can make an influence tree or whatever. But the bottom line is, when you look at the ecosystem of evidence-based medicine, funders, journals, researchers, patients, clinicians, companies, the NHS, and so on, it's worth thinking through where are the pinch points, where are the influence points, where if you kind of put your lever, you can produce change. And funders are a really important part of this. Researchers spend a lot of their time, well, what are we spending most of our time doing right now? After a year of productive work right now, we're doing some quite boring grant applications. And when funders click their fingers, researchers jump. We do what funders want us to do. We do what they require us to do, whether that means putting the same information into 15 different forms in 5 different ways. We're happy to do it because we need the money. So funders are a really important influence node in the ecosystem of evidence-based medicine. Now, the World Health Organization pulled together a fantastic initiative just over a year ago. They brought together a large group of different funders, non-industry trial funders, so people like Gates, MRC, NIHR, Medical Research Council, that is, and NIHR is the NHS Health Research funder, and lots of others, to produce a joint statement on sharing the results of clinical trials. Now, I'll just post that into Twitter. I think Twitter is probably an easier place to post links than anywhere else. This is the link we are discussing in our live broadcast right now. Clonk, broadcast, clonk. Oh wait, I'm about to create a horrific feedback loop. Right.
Quickly.
Okay, I just have to get the link. Okay, so yeah, I just posted a link. So that's the joint position statement by WHO. So the joint position statement was a really interesting and very powerful document. I wrote an editorial in the BMJ explaining why. I'm just going to find that link and I'll tweet it. You will need access to the BMJ to read it probably, although I think I've heard of something called Sci-Hub, Nick, where...
You've never heard of that. How dare you even mention it?
Other people have mentioned to me previously that there's a thing called Sci-Hub, I think it's SCIHUB, where you can illegally obtain access to any research paper. I'm not saying you should go there, it's just as a separate issue. I just wanted to mention that this is what we are mentioning now. Live. Oh God, I've just lost the thing for us live. Okay, prepare for feedback. Okay. We're sticking at 17 listeners. I don't know if people are coming in and leaving in tragic disappointment. Okay, so that's the BMJ paper that I wrote on why it's a good thing. So the WHO joint statement was really interesting because it says, within 12 months of signing this document, we commit to produce a public-facing policy that requires the following things of the people we give money to. requires that they register their trials before they begin, that they update their registry entries, requires that they post results to a registry within a certain period of time, and so on. Now, the first group of signatories, it went live with 12. I suppose I should declare a conflict of interest. I was I can't remember what the title, a temporary special advisor to WHO to help them produce this document. I don't think that's as big a conflict of interest as wanting all trials to be reported. So 12 funders signed up to it at launch, which was mid-May 2017. 3 additional funders signed up over the course of May 2017. It is now June the 1st, 2018. So it's 12 months since those 15 early funders signed up. So the project that we're doing today, and hopefully it won't take us much longer than a day or 2 or 3, we are going to check all of the people who signed up to the WHO joint statement to make sure that they did actually meet their commitments. So if you want, I'm just going to tweet here.
We unfortunately cannot put links in the chat.
Can we not?
No, it tells you no.
You're
so
not...
that's unfortunate.
Oh, tedious. Okay.
I assume for good reasoning.
Here is the Google sheet for our audit that we are discussing in that stream right now. Plonk. Splat. 33 people. Is this of any interest or consequence or value? Can you shout back at me just to tell me, should we just get on with it? Or is there anything even slightly interesting about us doing this here? It's not that I crave the approval of strangers. I'm just trying to prioritize the use of our time, you understand? Silence. I feel like I've had medical student teaching sessions. Okay.
There's 30-something people here. We'll forge ahead.
Okay, so we're going to check whether or not they have met their commitments. Now, I'm just going to tweet the paper again. Here we go. Bum, ba, da, bum. Dum, 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 dum. We should get some kind of system for tweeting links. Okay, here is the draft paper we are writing in our live stream. Okay, so you can see in our paper, we follow the IMRAD structure. So introduction is background, blah, 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 what we're doing, why we're doing it, methods. We basically have taken the WHO joint position statement. We have turned it into a list of sort of specific criteria against which we can judge funders' policies. So that's things like, well, they're split up by domain. You can see that in the Google sheet that we've shared. Do they have a policy on registration? Do they require that trials are registered? Do they mention that the trials need to be registered before commencement? Do they have a policy on reporting results? Do they give a timeline for this? Is the timeline 12 months of completion? And so on. So we've done audits like this a few times before. They can be very, very difficult and time consuming. I mean, actually, one thing to always bear in mind if you're ever thinking about doing something like this yourself is a simple bit of maths. Multiply the number of rows by the number of columns, and that will give you the number of cells, each of which might contain something which would be massively contested by somebody who will get cross if you get it wrong. Because this is quite an important back story, I think. Whenever you're doing research on research integrity issues, you're kind of held to a much higher standard than you normally would be, because firstly, you're making criticisms of systems and structures, I would say, rather than individuals, usually. But people are very motivated to try and point out that you're wrong. Partly the kind of inertia crowd that just going to say, oh, there's nothing to see here, these problems don't really exist. But also what we tend to do in our work, which is slightly different to most groups, is instead of publishing a paper which says X% of trials didn't report their results correctly, or X% of sponsors didn't report their results correctly, we share the information about the individual sponsors or research papers that have breached some guideline or another. And when you do that, then the people in those organizations are very motivated to check your work. Actually, that's quite good discipline. There's quite a lot on this in a paper, which will hopefully be out soon on the Compare Trials project. I think it really drives up standards when you know that your stuff's going to be double checked. But anyway, we'll talk about that when the Compare paper comes out, I think. Anyway, when you're doing audits like this, you don't want to end up checking 50 organizations against 50 criteria, because that is 2,500 data elements. And with this kind of audit, if there's any error in any single one of them, they're going to get really cross. So that's 2,500 sort of micro episodes of anxiety, if you're the kind of person who experiences that. So that's our audit. We've written the data frame. We've made the sheet, started the paper.
There's an FAQ, which the EBM Data Lab account tweeted out earlier. If you have any other questions, with a lot of the links of the stuff we've been talking about and Ben's been tweeting out. So that's one place to stop for all that. Our first question.
Oh, yeah, we have a question. Jamie Christie, aged. Doesn't give their age, that's annoying. Jamie Christie says, why not ask the 15 funders to fill it in themselves? Then you can contest each cell. Puts the onus the other way around, possibly less work. So that's an interesting suggestion. We, in our experience, well, firstly, from doing the audit of pharma companies' policies, when you say you're doing an audit of people's public-facing policies, they think you mean we're sending you a questionnaire to ask you what your values are or what you think you do. And so people tend to misunderstand it, firstly. The whole point is to audit their publicly accessible policies, the public commitments. Asking them to do the work, I don't know, it'd be a bit grandiose, I think, and a lot of them wouldn't.
And it's important to note that in our methodology for the JAMA audit, what we did was we did an assessment ourselves, and then in the spirit, as Ben said, of it not being a questionnaire, we then sent our findings to each funder and said, do you agree or disagree? So we basically gave them the opportunity to get back in touch with us and contest. And we weren't going to take necessarily what they said for granted. We had to verify it and make sure we actually agreed that it was a public-facing commitment. But hey, we're members of the public. If we can't find the policy after digging around harder than your average person would look, it would effectively does not exist in the public sphere. Yeah,
and I think that's a really important issue of kind of ethos and how to think about these things. If a commitment is not in black and white and in the public domain, then you cannot be held to it, really. So we're interested in commitments that people make in the public domain. With the pharma policy audit that was published in the BMJ 2017, that's a research paper, so you can actually get that one for free. I'm just going to tweet the link. So in that, when we sent the live stream viewers, I'm just posting it in here. Yeah, when we sent the we're down to 22 viewers. This is really boring. When we sent the companies like, hey, this is what we think your public policy says, a lot of them wrote back and said, oh, that's not fair. We do much more than that. And it was, obviously they sometimes I think companies are kind of motivated to try and slow you down, and they have public affairs employees whose job it is to slow you down. I think also it was difficult for them to comprehend the mindset that we're interested in what people say publicly. But anyway, look, that's, yeah. We audit their policies. We only care about what's in their public policies. And I think if we said, hey, we're going to, you fill out this data, I think probably they'd get it wrong.
You're also beholden
probably
to them.
They wouldn't bother.
You're also beholden to them to get your data out. Going back and forth with people can be a tedious task. And at least when we do the research,
it's done. Yeah.
Oh, my last name is DeVito, D-E-V-I-T-O.
Ah, yeah.
If you look at the JAMA paper that Ben tweeted out, I'm the first author on that. Ben's the last author. So.
Cool. All right. Good. What else? Has anyone got any questions? We're probably going to
get to it. You can follow along. Watch us do it live. Fill in the sheet on Google Sheets.
We were thinking about like having a camera in the room for the whole time. Do we still think that's about? I think it's a bit leaky.
It's a bit leaky. We may There may be a straight cuss word, but it could be fun. Maybe we'll do it for the first two. Leave it on.
Yeah, we could. I don't know.
Hey, if we drop down to 5 people, we'll know that we've lost interest and to stop. But
well, so I think the problem with doing so there's something quite pleasing about radical transparency. We discussed doing it with the compare trials project, where we checked for whether pre-specified outcomes were actually reported, partly because it was taking between like 2 and 7 hours to code each trial, and we thought nobody would ever believe the amount of effort it takes. Yeah, I think it would be very boring. It wouldn't actually add anything on the transparency front, and it would only make us feel inhibited and probably slow us down.
You want to do the first one so people can just see what we're doing that perhaps, and then we won't get on with it.
Yeah, so we've dropped down to 16. People are really bored now. Tell you what, look, I think we're probably going to go. So if 3 of you say in the chat or on Twitter that you want to watch us code the first one
in the next minute,
then in the next minute, then we'll stay online while we do it. Who is the first? Gates, maybe, or something?
Gates is, yeah. It's our
okay. So do you want to watch us code Gates or not?
There's one.
One person says do the first one. Any others?
A new person saying do it.
Nice. Well, we're waiting for one more.
Okay, 4.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Thomas Wicks.
Fine. Okay. Actually, the only downside of this is I need a wee, and that's another good example of what a sort of strange, leaky, transgressive thing it is to do this way. All right, fine. Ben McGreblian. All right, good. Okay, well, let's go.
So,
have you put the link in there?
They're in the, it's in the folder.
Okay.
And then you go to the January 1st audit orgs, and there's some links.
You put them in there. We should probably put them on the sheet.
Well, we'll move them to the sheet when we verify that they're worthwhile.
All right, good. Oh, wow. So you've pulled in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
A couple, yeah. We can.
Is welcome only 1 page?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, okay.
Todd, we'd like to screen share, but that involves technology we couldn't get working earlier.
Oh God, yeah, we tried so hard to screen share. If there's anyone who lives in Oxford, I think this is very unlikely. But if there's anyone who lives in Oxford who just literally wants to come and sit and hold our hands while we do.
Who knows a lot about how live Google Hangouts work.
Oh wait, tell you what though, we can share this document, can't we? So we're just sharing. I'm just tweeting out the document of links, so at least you can look at the same links that we're looking at. Here are the links we are following for those on live stream. Okay, there you go. So, all right, so close. All right, so I'm going to open gatesfoundation.org is the main page, and then the other 2 you think are there.
Are interesting policies, interesting things that we can talk about why they are or not.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so number 1, homepage, blah, 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 nothing to see there. Okay, open access policy. So here's an interesting thing. Yeah, we found that, well, actually in some other people's research where they've sort of said they were talking about trials transparency, actually they were talking about open access policies, which is a completely different but important thing. Also, in my experience, so I spend a lot of time hanging out in kind of, Whitehall and talking to people in funders and going to sort of policy things. And a lot of the time when you talk about trials transparency, people jump out and go, oh, we've got a really great open access policy. This is not about open access. But often people mix their open access policies in with their transparency policies. So the first page that we pulled up is the open access policy. Does it have anything at all about registration and results? Not really. Oh, we've adopted a policy. They say something about how it's nice to share underlying data sets, which I agree with, but it's not the focus of this. We can talk about why at some stage. There are more than 21 people ever. Right. Open access, they'll pay the fees. No. Nothing there. Oh yeah, here's an interesting thing. This came up with the original policy audits, actually. They have a thing which says, I think it was more than just Gates, wasn't it? They have a thing where they say, for all the papers that get published, we'll make them open access and we'll try to share the underlying data. And you go, why have you got a comprehensive underlying data sharing policy only for the things that people deign to publish?
Yeah, just to give some background as well, if you look at the JAMA audit, the Gates Foundation is actually one that we audited in that one as well. And they did not, as of a year ago, did not have a registration policy that publicly that we could find.
That's true.
They had a limited result sharing policy and an okay
IPD one. Yeah, Gates did not do well, which is a real disappointment and surprise. I mean, when you think about, you know, the background and the mission, but that's the way with all health researchers. I think transparency is just a blind spot. Okay, so nothing on the open access page. So we're now moving on to the second link, which is headed How We Work, Information Sharing Approach. Around the world, institutions are maximizing their impact by becoming inclusive and transparent. This follows fundamental truth. We're embracing this, blah, blah, blah. In the first audit, we basically had to come up with a thing in the coding frame that said they make some sort of generally supportive statement about the ideology of transparency without actually requiring people to do anything. By sharing how our approach, strategy. There's a lot of motherhood and apple pie here, but I don't see anything about registration. Oh wait, well, they've got a full grants database. It's possible that there are things you can infer from that. Mm-hmm. External reporting to trusted parties. There's nothing there. They linked their open access policy. Wow, is this really it? You couldn't find any other underlying documents?
Oh, and then there's
our approach to measurement and evaluation on the left.
Less helpful than you would think.
Okay.
But then there's the global access policy, which is also. Did you look at that already?
The open access policy.
No, there's the global access policy, which is a different thing, which is actually really difficult to get to from the main Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation page. But I know experience.
Where's that? Oh wait, I've already got that. Yeah. Is that's not how we work?
No, one more.
So how we work is, so this one, not the grants database, not the information sharing approach, global access.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, but let's just finish the previous one.
Sure.
So the information sharing approach, I think it's got nothing at all, has it, on registration?
No.
Results. Just a quick. Regular expressions are not the way to live a life, but doing Control F for Regis. There's nothing on registration there at all, is there? Nothing on trials specifically. Okay, global access, gigantic global access policy. Oh wow, this is interesting. Look, people are helping us.
That's really cool.
Open access policy, page 2. Actually, we did see that. Has he got anything on it, Todd? And underlying data guidelines. Oh wow, gates.ly. Hang on, have you got a gates.ly specially shortened thing because you work for Gates, Todd? Is this the most efficient public affairs action we've ever seen? Or this is the underlying data kind of. Yeah. So that's the data underlying published results again. So we're not actually auditing here what their access policy is for underlying individual participant data. And that's because...
just in case anyone doesn't know, while Ben looks at this and reads around a little bit, trial registration means that you're registered on a registry such as clinicaltrials.gov or the EU Clinical Trials Register or the ISRCTN, which are just simply places, they're repositories where you can put information about your trial. Ideally prospectively, so that people know what's going on and can hold you accountable to what you put in that protocol. And also ostensibly so subjects can know that they are going on as well and use it to find research that they might be able to get involved in. So clinicaltrials.gov, if you're from the US, is the one run by the NIH, the American funder. EUCTR is run by the EMA.
Yeah, that open access 2 page I don't think has anything, but it's really interesting. Thanks. Okay, so we've gone to the global access page. Sorry, just to check, Todd, you didn't think there was anything useful there that for any of our data frame questions, did you? All right, global access. Still nothing. Oh, and then FAQ, right, and lots of links to other bits.
I just tagged the Gates Foundation in a tweet, so we'll see if their social media person is paying attention this Friday afternoon.
it's surely Todd Robbins. He's got that corner. Yeah, I mean, to be clear, again, there's nothing kind of adversarial. We have a basic principle which we've applied throughout all of our projects, including the FDAA Trials Tracker, fdaa.trialstracker.net, and lots of other stuff. The assume good faith policy, which actually I recommend for all working and home relationships as well as research projects.
We would love it if every single one of these organizations met all our criteria. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
Well, especially now, especially after saying they were going to. What's the relationship? What are these IP reports exactly? IP reports found that, oh, that's a description of what the IP has been made during the project. Funders love IP chat, don't they? I've intermittently had interesting conversations with them about things like open prescribing, where they go, how are you going to monetize this? And you say, we're going to help the NHS by giving the data away, just like healthcare is free at point of access. You wouldn't have thought that would be mind-blowing, would you? I tell you what, there's an interesting thing about having the camera is I feel the obligation to maintain a pattern inconsistent with reading really boring policy documents.
Yeah.
What level of monitoring does by IP though, do they mean?
They mean intellectual
outputs.
Property.
Yeah, but I wonder if they mean.
Well, yeah, I think an issue with Gates, right, is that they don't just do trials, right? They fund all sorts of research.
That's true of everything.
So they're going to cover themselves on a bunch of areas, but they should have it clear, but they do for based on science.
But I mean, nobody exclusively funds trials, really.
Yeah.
I just don't see anything in this IP report stuff. I don't see anything there that's got anything to do with it. Do you think it has?
No, I do not. But I think it's important to show that we looked.
Oh wow, this is globalaccess.gatesfoundation.org is one of those hip single-page web pages.
Todd, we are seeing what you're writing. I just don't know that any of it sort of is relevant. Like it quite fits in anything in our data frame. I mean, it's great, it's good stuff, but it's not quite having to hitting the trial transparencies button.
So what, I'm just I've gone to their grants database. I'm just going to have a really quick look and see if I can pull up some trials. If I do a search for a randomized trial or something.
Oh, thank you. A happy, joyful being.
Oh, no grants have got the word trial in their title. Oh no, wait, trial. Enteric diseases and diarrhea.
Oh, it's university.
Oh, I see. Right.
It's just saying they got it.
This grants database contains basically nothing.
Look for this on the website, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that is an interesting issue that's up with the policy audit that we did on pharma companies, which was murderous. I mean, God, that was a real learning experience actually, and we've become much more. You're lucky that we did that before you started here. Which is, it takes you. Oh, hi Todd. Yeah, we did share a link to the paper
for the non-commercial audit. I can put a BOI number in. I'm sure I can put.
I'm just posting it in the chat.
I'll answer questions.
So people find it really difficult to, we found it really difficult just to find people's policies. I mean, actually with the pharma policy audit, there were only, I think there are only 2 documents. It's in the paper. There are only 2 documents that companies came back to us and said, hey, you missed these documents. and they were both things that were impossible to find. It was one company, might have been GSK, might have been Pfizer, and it wasn't linked to from anywhere on the company's website. You couldn't find it on a Google search. And I did a kind of super restricted bit of Google Foo to find out how many incoming links it had. I think one of them had 2, and one of them had 0 or something. Anyway, yeah. So one of the reasons why we send our assessments out to the funders or out to the companies when we've done them is we want to make sure we haven't completely missed a document, because that's always your concern with this kind of thing. There are two ways that you may conceivably go wrong with an audit of somebody's public policies. One is you might miscode it. Now, actually, I think the risk of that is fairly low. I don't think this is an environment where you need to be kind of super prissy and do multiple blinded coding and do correlation coefficients and kappas and all of that stuff, because for the most part, it's pretty unambiguous. The commitments are either yes, no, or unclear. There have been ones where we've had arguments, not arguments, like disagreements that were resolved in discussion, but that's fairly unusual. But I think the real threat to the data quality is that there's a policy that you don't find. But then again, low visibility policies, that's a real issue, and it's ridiculous. Anyway, let me have a look at other questions. Thomas Wicks, just so that everybody knows, Tom is a very interesting chap, works for an organisation called Trial Scope, who do kind of consultancy for pharma on trials transparency. Are the criteria for this policy assessment the same as you used last year for industry or updated? Aha, well, Thomas Wicks, you're in the live stream, so I would understand why you might have missed the beginning. Today we're explicitly comparing. So today we're looking at whether people implemented the change in policy that they promised they would 12 months ago in the WHO joint statement. So 12 months ago, 12 funders all came along and said, we're going to endorse this WHO joint statement in which we say that within 12 months of signing this WHO joint statement, we will make a public-facing policy that makes the following commitments. And 12 of them signed up in mid-May 2017, an additional 3 signed up over the course of May 2017. So now it's June 1st, 2018. It's 12 months since those 15 organizations said, we will have the following elements in our public policy within 12 months. And so we are explicitly assessing against those criteria. And if you look in my tweet stream, you'll see we've shared the data frame that we're using here, which is extracted from the WHO joint statement.
So you can post links in I can't.
Oh, you can. Oh,
I'm a guest.
Oh,
interesting. But you are the king.
Oh, okay.
With your little crown there. So.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's interesting. Although actually, kind of literally the opposite of what we would like. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So actually, a really useful and important piece of feedback from anyone who has, been drawn into this nerdy backwater of the internet. Go through the joint statement, which is linked from. Oh, Tom Berry's saying, I assume you've seen this link. It's the list of policies. Ah, how odd. We have not. That wasn't anywhere when we searched. Ah, great. That's really good. We would have found that eventually.
Yeah, we would have clicked through.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Oh, wow, they've got a policy on putting systematic reviews on Prospero. That's really good. Oh, wow. Who is that guy? Tom Berry. Dude, maybe you need, maybe you should be like co-author on our paper. Should we make an acknowledgement section at the bottom? Do you think we should put Tom Berry in? I don't know. Do you meet ICMJE criteria for
acknowledgement?
A salute at the bottom of the paper?
Where? I'm interested to see how he even got to that, because I'm on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and there's no clear link to it about.
Yeah, how did you find that, Tom? Tom Berry. Tom Berry is tweeting, by the way, rather than tweeting at me, rather than in the chat. I can post web links, David. David Noonan, by the way, works in that office over there.
Carl Hennigan is also watching this. You can literally hear us through this wall.
If you do want to participate, why don't you come into this room? Interesting. Yeah. So, Tom, are you going to tell us how you found that link? No. Okay.
Let's see this, though.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this is looking good. Working from home Friday. What a slacker, David Noonan. Okay, so let's go through and code this baby. Registration of trials and systematic reviews. They use the WHO definition to decide what constitutes a trial. Jolly good. Okay, we're going to need the data frame here, man. We're in business. Rock and roll. By Googling. All right. Okay, cool. Thank you, Tom. So, trials should be registered prospectively. Ah, cool. Okay, wait a sec. Hang on. I'm going to put the video window on that monitor over there and the data frame here.
Okay.
All right. So, registration. So, I have a policy on registration. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, we're a bit previous here. We only went live for 5 minutes, and now we're actually going to start doing quite a lot, I think. I was thinking about making drop downs like we've done before. Make it yes, no, partial, and supportive statement.
Perhaps for the past, but I think
just for this one,
let's just do it.
Because we've got like an audience of 23. You don't want to deal with that. Okay, fine. So they've got a policy on registration. Yes. So if you go to I can see lots of you were previously in the WHO audit data frame document and have now left. I don't think this is a very exciting watch along with Mother moment, but if you want, there's the link. So
I'm still having some trouble finding that link to that page. It's not an easy thing to get to. So if anyone from the Gates Foundation is watching, make this more prominent.
Yeah, I mean, actually, so this has come up with our grey literature searching projects, one of which, inshallah, will appear soon. It's very, very difficult to come up with a kind of operationalized description. Like a PubMed search, it's Boolean logic, whereas Google searching, you can say the obvious things that you do to look for things, and then you hit a blank. But it's the extra mile stuff is quite hard to code. Anyway, has a policy on registration? Yes. Requires that trials are registered. Yes, they do now. Oh, wait, hang on. I'm just going to pop this into the chat so you can see what we're coding. I'll put it on Twitter as well. What am I coming? I had a psychodynamic friend who said you should listen to the words of the songs in your head and it will tell you what you're feeling. Right. Okay. So, do they mention that they're registered before commencement? Yes, they do, which is rather good. Oh, interesting trivia. Trans transparency legislation nerds. FDA Amendments Act 2007, if I remember correctly, and you are the world's biggest cocktail party bore on this topic. You're allowed to register your trials anything up to 21 days after first patient, first visit. Yeah.
Which I believe that they would argue is basically prospectively, but we know trials that could complete in 21 days, right?
I know drugs that have been approved on the basis of trials that were no longer than 36 hours long.
I've cracked the case, Ben. So here's an interesting thing. You think if you'd want to know the Gates Foundation policy, you would go to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation website. For some reason, the Gates Open Research policy is at a completely different URL. It's at gatesopenresearch.org, which I don't see directed to from anywhere on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation website.
We can do an incoming links search as well, maybe later. Yeah. Anyway, low visibility of these policies. So, trials to be registered prospectively. Trial registration number and registration date must be included in the article. Oh, that is a thing from the WHO thing, actually. I think it reads to me like they've read it, but maybe we should go and check. Wait, it's in reporting. Oh yeah, trial ID should be present in results publications. That's good. Okay. Oh wow, they mention all trials. That's nice. Although we expect trials to be registered before patient recruitment starts, several initiatives have recognised that retrospective, such as the All Trials campaign, have recognised that retrospective trial registration will encourage publication of both positive results and the trials that were conducted before registration was possible. In line with these initiatives, they'll consider retrospectively registered trial, provided an explanation for late registration is provided in the article. See our forthcoming paper on how often that happens. Again, the trial registration number must be included in the method section. Okay. Okay. So here's an interesting thing. So the WHO thing says, mention that the registry must be updated as necessary to include final enrollment and completion date. Now, this is something that comes up rather a lot in the and in our unreported trial of the week series in the BMJ, where you find people just abandon their registry entries.
They'll have a completion date a year and a half in the past, but still be active, not recruiting.
Yeah,
things like that.
But that's why, I mean, that's genuinely, as far as we can tell, the reason why the FDA Amendments Act explicitly says if you abandon your registry entry, then we will take the data that you abandon on it seriously, and you'll be found to be in breach of the law if you go past your completion date. Can you remember? I'll just post on Twitter. Can you remember which of these unreported trial of the weeks had
an abandoned
entry? I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. Was it the stem cell?
It was inhaled nitric oxide which has since been updated, but it was inhaled nitric oxide
and updated by us in an open-hearted fashion because the data changed. Oh, we didn't update the blog. You mean they've updated their registry and we've posted a comment to say that? Yeah. Because we are good. Okay. Hang on. This is the thing we just mentioned. The live stream, live stream here, Okay, I really feel like chat is fun, but we probably do need to get on with our lives quite soon. But let's finish the Gates thing. Okay, so they have definitely not mentioned that registers need to be kept up to date when terminated or when enrollment and completion date changed. They don't mention changing now results.
Well, is there actually scroll to the bottom, is there like a last updated date on this? I guess they wouldn't say what their old policy was. And there does not look like there is a.
We can look on archive.org to see.
Yeah, but that's, I think, out of the. They don't mention it if they do.
Okay, so this is interesting. Look, they've got a good registration section, but there's just nothing on reporting.
Well, there's standards of reporting.
Well, yeah, which, as we know from Compare and everybody else, people just say they endorse and then cheerfully ignore. Trial registration number and date should be included in methods. Any deviation from the original trial protocol must be explained in the article. Bloody hell, nothing on results reporting at all. Can anybody else in the chat see anything on results reporting? Just because many eyes is, I mean, God.
They say they encourage publication of both positive and negative results.
Where's that?
That is in it's in the fourth paragraph of the registration.
Oh, yeah, no, I saw that, but.
And then there's the data availability section, which is all articles in Gates Open Research that report. But these are, once again, this is the, as we talked about earlier.
If you've published.
If you've published, should include the data underlying the results.
It's so interesting. They've got a really long thing on retraction and misconduct of expressions of concern and. So odd. I mean, I know I've said this about 800 million times, but yeah, we're still doing Gates, yeah. But it just never ceases to astonish me the extent to which making sure your results are published It's just a massive cultural blind spot for.
And they can be so supportive of it. Why not? I mean, there must be. I have a hard time believing it's because they're lazy or something like that. There must be reasons, but what those reasons are, like it's.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it is, but I mean, it just seems like something so easy to put in black and white.
I mean, yeah, no, and also, yeah, the publication, they're not saying in that last section of the trial registration thing that they encourage publication. They're saying that we at the All Trials campaign said that we recognise that retrospective trial registration would encourage publication of positive and negative results. And just for background there, so it's not exactly like a, what's it called, an armistice? What is it when you say everybody can throw their things in? Armitage? No. Anyway, yeah, even if somebody doesn't share the results of all of the trials going back to 1995 or 1980, it would at least be useful if people could disclose what they did. So retrospective registration for kind of previous eras of research is actually, I think, a sensible thing to recommend, but it shouldn't be used as permission to retrospectively register your trials. Actually, an interesting thing from chatting with people from industry, which I do an awful lot and have, generally people are professional, right? And I have quite good informal chats as well. But one thing that somebody brought up, sorry, I'm rambling because I'm trying to remember if they said it was fine to share, in which case I'll tell you who. But anyway, they basically said, look, we've got a load of trials which we tried to retrospectively register, but the people running the trial registers wouldn't allow us to because we couldn't fill in a couple of the mandated data elements, which is a really interesting example of the best being the enemy of the good. So there's a company coming to you and saying, look, we've got a whole list of trials that we did. We'd like to just have them up there, in particular, so people can know that we've done them, and if they really want us to go through the palaver of pulling them for archives.
Ben, here's something interesting regarding this. So apparently Gates maintains this Gates Open Research thing in which people can publish their own article, like in a sort of almost in a preprint sort of way.
Oh, okay. And do you have to?
Well, that is the question. But it looks like they provide this really innovative, interesting.
I'd be very interested to know how much people use it. Everyone's pretty weird about using.
It says, so over here is this little sidebar. It says immediate transparent publication. See how it works. Gates Open Research provides all Gates-funded researchers with a place to rapidly publish any results they think are worth sharing. All articles benefit from immediate publication, transparent referencing, and inclusion of also source data. Now, this gets to a question of publication bias in general, right? Because whether the investigator thinks it's worth sharing or not shouldn't matter.
Yeah, where is that sentence?
Place rather they think are worth sharing. That's sort of the underlying problem of publication bias.
That's what it's all about. How interesting. Gates Open Research provides all Gates-funded researchers a place to rapidly publish any results they think are worth sharing.
So I can see if I'm having empathy for the Gates Foundation people, right?
Yeah.
Put them on, I can see how they would think this satisfies that requirement. If they're not familiar with the. We're not thinking through that.
I mean, nobody could possibly think that satisfies the requirement to report the results of all trials. But I can understand, of course, why they would think it was a good thing to provide a platform that might be quicker than or sidestep or have a different threshold to traditional journals. But that's a very different kettle of ballpark, isn't it? There's definitely nothing there. Let's go through and do the salient no's, eh? Have a policy on reporting results? No. The Gates Foundation, despite signing up to the WHO joint statement 12 months ago, as far as we can see, doesn't have a policy on reporting results, doesn't require people to report results, doesn't give a timeline, doesn't mention registry disclosure, doesn't mention journal publication with an indicative time frame of 24 months as per the joint statements. Doesn't mention that protocols should be published by the time of results disclosure, doesn't mention that protocol should contain amendments, does say that trial ID should be included, doesn't say that there's right, okay, so here are a few And then we really will get out of here, I think, and do the next one. Well, maybe we should do it in public. It's fun enough. Anyway, the next few in our data frame, I think, are ones where we may need to look at the funders' guidance to applicants, because they say what?
Sorry, this is all done through F1000.
Oh yeah.
So then it comes there and it's all done.
So Welcome have just done the same thing.
Oh,
that's one of various reasons why I'd like to get some money out of Welcome, actually, because we've published so much in the last year that it's taken about £30,000 or £40,000 out of our budgets. Insanely, maybe 20 something. Anyway, hey, are you coming in or are you?
You're completely mad.
I think this is a really wholesome way to do
it. It's really interesting.
This is Carl from next door.
He's been watching it.
Head of the Center for Evidence-Based Medicine.
Watching it at what goes on Friday afternoon.
This isn't Friday afternoon, man. This is our life from now on. We're going to do everything. I'm going to do all my supervision with all my staff. Broadcast live to the internet.
Brilliant. Hey, have a good weekend.
Carl, you've included someone else's handle in your tweet. That's not me.
Right.
So someone else has been roping. Some other unfortunate Nick DeVito has been roping to this.
I don't watch you on Twitter. Take care.
See you later. Okay, so some of these, I think we'll need to look at the guidance to applicants, which will be another barbarous thing to find, because they say the plan for disclosing the results of the trial should be included at the time of grant submission. That's what WHO required. That's what in the WHO joint statement, funders said we will require grant applicants to tell us what their plans for disclosure are. I think to assess that, we'll have to check the forms that they give people,
which is not always public for Gates. I don't think in our correspondence with them.
Oh, is that right?
They sent over some stuff because I think they sent over some contract language last time, which isn't necessarily public.
Oh no, but but we're not interested in the contract after it's awarded. This is at the time of grant submission, so that. So
there may be another whole other website for those policies as we're learning to say.
Not in public docs, but not checked. Guidance for applicants. Yes. I'm just going to put that into that cell so that nothing gets forgotten. And then same for this. Reasonable funds to ensure compliance is a cost eligible item. Well, compliance with no policy, but anyway. Mention that applicants' previous track record of publishing results is considered when assessing new grant applications, which, by the way, is a fantastic thing to have been included in the joint statement, right? To say to researchers, wait, if you want money to do a new trial, you've got to tell us about the trials that you did before and tell us if any of those haven't published their results. And we're going to consider that when discussing whether to give you any more money. That is extraordinarily progressive and fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the discussions in the room around producing this document are not something that I will share because, we all wear different hats at different times. It's very interesting. Everyone's everyone's always good-hearted generally. In about 40 years, I'll write a really boring, snarky autobiography about the times when they weren't, but they're few and far between, really. Right. Mention of monitoring compliance, no, and no, and no. There's just nothing about how they monitor compliance with their non-existing policy, is there?
Yeah, and then IPD is, their information sharing gets into that a little bit. It's kind of wonky in the IP section.
Yeah, they're generally supportive of data sharing only for things published.
Yeah.
And open access.
And I would say, are we keeping like supportive of a thing? Because I think they're pretty supportive of results, having set up this whole thing for you to submit your results. They're just not requiring you to do it.
No, I think that's a completely different issue. Giving people a publishing platform, and especially when you explicitly say it's for things you can register, there's nowhere. So we invented the supportive statement thing for when we were doing the first audit, when we saw that there were people like the Australians were the first, weren't they? Where they said, was it Australians?
The Australians were the impetus for us.
Yeah. So they had a sort of 2-paragraph spiel going, oh, the oil trials campaign is really important and publishing trial results is really important. If you don't publish all your trial results, then people can't. But nowhere did they say, you've got to publish all the results of all the trials.
Exactly.
So we couldn't give them a yes, you've committed.
But I mean, and this is something we couldn't quite get.
Gates don't go anywhere near that.
And this is something we could, like, this is an interesting thing, right? Because Gates is a philanthropic foundation. They can make whatever policies they want. In speaking, when we emailed the Australian funder, the Australian government, NIHR, and we're going back and forth with the guy, they mentioned that sometimes, and this is interesting data that we couldn't fit in our short JAMA article, but they claim, and I don't know much about how funding research works in Australia, but the chap we were talking with said that they really lack the jurisdiction to force that kind of thing. And it lies with local authorities that just the way it works. And that, like I said, I don't know how true or not that is. I'm not familiar enough with the system in Australia, but it's interesting to consider these sorts of things and how people can think about it and how it might.
Yeah, I agree. That said, in my sort of reasonably long experience of having arguments about all kinds of things, whether it's evidence-based policy or making NHS informatics less terrible or trials transparency, you do often get a kind of computer says no kind of response. People kind of going, oh well, I'd love to do the right thing, but unfortunately, and I think if there's if there's a culture in an organisation of being genuinely committed to achieving something, and this is an important something, then it gets done. Okay, I think we're done for Gates, right? On to Medical Research Council, then welcome. Why not make ourselves really unpopular with the people we're applying to the money? We may revisit it at a later date and make sure we didn't miss any documents, but I think as an initial sweep so people could see our process, that this was a good... So there are 19 of you left. I think it's fair to say this is pretty niche, although actually this is only people who are passing through Twitter, which is kind of a river, if you are actively looking. Is this interesting? Should we do this again? Should I make more videos? Should I persecute my staff and force them to appear on camera? Yes, no. Tell me on Twitter or in the chat. With a little bit more anticipation and marketing for this. Who knows how many people would have joined? Yeah. Well, and also, it's who you get, I guess, not the number as well. What do you reckon? Tom Berry has joined us. Tom Berry finds it interesting. Hey, out of interest, who are you? Does anybody never do this again? I think that's fair. Yeah, who are you? Just if anybody can be bothered, just tell me. Tell us roughly what you do. Just the broadest terms. Are you general nerds? Are you bored? Doing something else? Are you avoiding work on a Friday afternoon? Oh wow, Jamie Christie's just found. She's ahead of the game. Nice. Onto the MRC. Yeah, who are you? What do you do? Anyone, not just Tom Berry. Yeah. A self-employed physicist. I'm kind of intrigued. That's good work if you can get it. Yeah. Yeah, what do the rest of you do? Why are you here? Why don't you have somewhere to be on this warm, sticky day? Mind you, we love that you're here. Of course. Yeah. Right. Good. Okay. Well, if anyone else would like to dox themselves. Thanks for hanging out. It was lovely. We'll do this again, I think. I think so. A broadcast antenna engineer. Oh man. And then there we go. A surgeon from Scotland. Yeah, we'll do this again. Alex was up for doing a chat about. We thought the homeopathy paper just because that had social media enthusiasm, but also exemplifies some really interesting issues in evidence-based medicine. You could live stream Alex calculating defined daily doses. That would be quite a sweary project. Some very tedious. I got him to scrape because we saw that the URLs had a really nice standardized for the Australian. Yeah. And he had that moment like in the XKCD cartoon where you can fly. You import a Python library for scraping, and it was just, Christ, I can do this myself. Another engineer. Wow. So we've learned that engineers pretty much write their own ticket on a Friday afternoon, I guess. And self-employed physicists exist. Good. Okay. Well, look, we'll post this, right, on the internet. So that people can-
Yeah. So this video will be live if
Watch
anyone would
back.
like to revisit this hour of their life, this moment,
Yeah.
this moment in radical scientific transparency history.
You can reenact this whole afternoon.
Sheila thinks Carl should be more involved in future podcasts.
And we need, what do we need? We need to sort out the screen sharing thing, don't we?
Yeah, I think
that was
so.
So dispiriting.
But everyone knows Sheila is from All Trials, the All Trials campaign, who everyone should go and check out their website for more information about why it's so important that people share all of their trials, register and report all of their trials. The alltrials.net, right?
Alltrials.net, all trials registered, all trials reported. And yeah, good. Hey, cheerio. Very nice to meet you all. It's kind of amazing and beautiful in a funny way, isn't it?
That even these 5 people cared enough to join us.
We're down to 17.
Yeah.
Oh no, 18.
But the people in chat, even though some of them were people we work with, and Thomas Wicks, who his job is to know things about things like this.
Encourage other people to fret about this kind of thing. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that there are 17 people who.
And this was spontaneous with a little bit of marketing and a little bit of, hey, everyone, put this in your calendars, and maybe not on a Friday afternoon.
I feel like we're drifting into even more boring territory. Talking about how to market our fundamentally quite boring thing. Good. Okay. Well, look, this has been a tremendous pleasure. It's 4:43. I think we're going to kill another. We're definitely going to kill another one, maybe 2.
Let's get MRC out of the way.
Done. Yeah, and
you can still follow along in the Google Doc if this is really riveting for you.
Oh yeah, so the Google Doc with the paper. We started the paper this morning. Maybe it's kind of interesting to see how well. I guess we write papers. Like I always try and do the intro and the methods before beginning. It's the kind of lazy alternative to elaborate pre-specification and a protocol. If you just write the methods, then it's there. Quite good intellectual discipline as well to write an unpopulated results section. But look, I'll ramble about that sort of thing on another day. Hey, we're going to go. Feels weird just going though, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you got to say goodbye.
Yeah, I feel quite attached.
We're at EBM Data.
One way.
I assume everyone watching this knows this, but in case there's any stray people, ebmdatalab.net is where you can check stuff all about our work.
Well, and that's our terrible website. You can't really find out all about our work there, can you?
No.
Yet, but we're going to fix that. But if you want to see our transparency stuff, go to FDAA.trialstracker.net, and that's our amazing machine for spotting unreported trials that breach the FDA Amendments Act.
Ben and I write the unreported trial of the week based on that as well.
BMJ. So if you Google that. And then there are lots of other things that will be coming shortly, and of course, all of our papers. And we're going to revamp our website very soon. ebmdatalab.net was thrown up not in a hurry, but it was thrown up kind of before we'd done anything. And I'm allergic to saying we are going to do something. I like to say.
No vaporware website.
Yeah, exactly. We have done it. Here it is. Isn't it great? But yeah, we'll definitely do one of these on the FDAR tracker. Several.
And then open prescribing is the other big thing we do. That is on the research integrity side of things. And
actually, the ebmdatalab.net page for that is pretty good, but it hasn't got the kind of 5 or 10 papers that we've published in the last year on that. So I must put those on. But I've got a very long document about our informatics work, which I must share. And Guy, if you're a web developer and you want to do stuff with us, send me an email. Good. All right. Well, do you know what? I tell you what's feeling weird about going away and saying goodbye is nobody else can say goodbye. It's very one way. That's creepy.
Well, we've listened to enough podcasts in our life that we know people can cope.
Good. Okay. Somebody say goodbye. Goodbye.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.